Good morning. It's Monday, the 30th of December. You're tuned in to our 10 a.m. newscast here at ARIRANG's news centre in Seoul. Let's take a look at what's making the headlines. It remains uncertain whether Parliament will get to pass next year's budget today after the ruling and main opposition parties failed to reach a compromise on the details of the interlinked spy agency reform bill. As the country's rail strike enters its fourth week, the state-run rail operator KORAIL hires substitute engineers in the hope of maintaining high-speed and subway services in the 70% range during the upcoming New Year's holiday. Plus, just weeks ahead of the Winter Olympics in Sochi, a suspected Islamist suicide bomber attacks a train station in the southern Russian city of Volgograd, killing at least 16 people. Korea's ruling and opposition parties are finding it extremely difficult to reach a compromise on a bill to reform the nation's scandal-ridden spy agency. The hold-up means lawmakers may struggle to pass the 2014 budget bill before the end of the year, Oh Jin-ju reports.
Despite marathon talks between the floor leaders of the rival parties over the weekend, the ruling and opposition parties failed to reach an agreement on the bill to reform the nation's spy agency. As the two sides are still divided on key issues, it seems the reform bill for the National Intelligence Service, along with the budget proposal for next year, won't win parliamentary approval within this year. So concerns are rising that the National Assembly will have to draw up an unprecedented provisional budget, as the main opposition Democratic Party has hinted that it will not support the 2014 budget proposal if the ruling Centre Party rejects its demands on the NIS reform bill. Then what issues remain? The DP wants the bill to include a legal clause that bans an NIS information officer from having regular access to government offices. DP leader Kim Han-gil emphasized the party will not accept the bill unless their requests are met and will fight to attain their demands.
As the leader of the Democratic Party, I make it clear that our party will never be dragged along by what the Centre Party wants.
The Centre Party has turned down the DP's request, saying the two sides have already made a tentative agreement to include a provision that bans an NIS information officer from illegally gathering intelligence. In particular, the ruling party criticized the DP for trying to link the passage of the budget proposal with the NIS reform bill.
The DP is saying that if you don't give us this, we won't give you that. This kind of a strategy is not how a normal political party should behave.
Although the floor leaders of the two parties will resume their talks Monday morning, it remains unclear as to whether the two parties can actually come to an agreement on the sticking points. Oh Jin-ju, ARIRANG News.
Moving now to the nationwide rail strike, now in its 22nd day. Passenger train services are still operating well below normal levels, with just 1 month remaining before the Lunar New Year holiday, which is one of the biggest holidays in Korea and sees most of the country on the move. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The state-run railway operator KORAIL says tickets for the Lunar New Year holiday will go on sale as originally planned on January 7th, despite the ongoing strike by the railway union. Regular passenger train services, such as the Semaul and Mugunga, are expected to drop to around 62% of normal levels from Monday. Freight train services will be running at around 56% of regular levels. The government and KORAIL have vowed to come up with ways to mitigate the impact of the strike on railway operations. KORAIL says it has hired 147 locomotive engineers out of the 660 new employees it said it would hire to keep the things running as smoothly as possible. The Vice Minister for Transfer Yeo Hyung-gu says the government is considering a law that would make it easier to remove striking rail workers from their posts in the future. This comes as the police issued arrest warrants for 6 more union members, bringing the total number wanted by the police to 31. 2 union members are currently in detention, and 1 union member is being questioned after being taken into police custody. As of Monday morning, around 2,470 people, around 28% of union members have returned to their posts, according to KORAIL. This comes after KORAIL issued an ultimatum to the railway union last Friday, demanding striking workers return to work. But the return rate for locomotive engineers was nearly 5%, one of the lowest rate out of all the positions. At the current time, it looks almost certain that some of the thousands of people who usually take the train east to watch the first sunrise of the new year will be unable to find a seat. Kim Ji-yeon, ARIRANG News.
Staying on that story, we have a fresh development coming in. Representatives of rival political parties and the Railway Labour Union have agreed to meet in Parliament to hammer out a deal to end the strike. The union says it will call off the strike if an agreement is reached to prevent the privatisation of KORAIL, and we'll bring you more updates on that in our next news broadcast. Now, marking 2 years since North Korean leader Kim Jong-un was named the supreme commander of the military, the regime's high-ranking officials have sworn allegiance to their young leader. Top officials in the military, ruling party and cabinet attended Sunday's ceremony, just a day ahead of the anniversary, but the leader's aunt, Kim Young-hee, whose husband was recently executed on charges of treason, was not seen at the event. In a speech, Kim Jong-un's new right-hand man and director of the military's political department, Che Ryong-hae, said the military should hold higher the slogan of protecting the leader with their lives. Che added that should the enemy attack, the military will wipe out the invaders and realize a unification on the Korean peninsula. Korea-Japan relations are strained to a point not seen in years following Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's visit last week to a war shrine that honors Japan's war dead and several Class A war criminals. And it looks like relations could plunge to fresh lows in the new year as a number of events are planned that could send fresh chills through the already frosty relations. Kim Min-ji reports.
Relations between Seoul and Tokyo are at one of the worst levels of the post-war era following Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's highly controversial visit last week to the Yasukuni War Shrine. And with several unfavorable events in store for next year, the icy relations are unlikely to thaw anytime soon. The first event is the Takashima Day, which takes place in Japan's Shimane Prefecture each year in February, claiming sovereignty over the Korea-controlled Dokdo Islets. This past February, the Abe administration sent government officials to the event for the first time, drawing sharp criticism from Korea. In March, Japan will announce the screening results of its history textbooks, while Tokyo is expected to unveil its diplomatic blue paper and defense white paper in April and July, respectively. As Japan continues to claim sovereignty over Dokdo, these events will almost certainly negatively affect the relations. It is also unclear whether Abe will make a second visit to the Yasukuni War Shrine during the April Spring Festival. Seoul's foreign ministry reacted strongly to Abe's visit last week, expressing its deep regret and anger. Another event which could ignite tensions is a ruling by Korea's Supreme Court ordering Japanese companies to compensate Korean victims of forced labor during Japan's colonial rule of Korea in the early 1900s. Making matters worse, if the case is taken to the International Court of Justice, it could expand into a diplomatic conflict. Moreover, Japan's continuous push for collective self-defense has also set the two countries against each other. The Korean government has been doing its best to convince its allies against supporting Japan's move to regain its right to collective self-defense, which would allow Tokyo to use force in the event an ally is attacked. Meanwhile, reports say that the Korean government will postpone all defense meetings and diplomatic exchanges with Japan for the time being. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Investigations are underway to work out what caused a collision between a cargo ship and a chemical-laden tanker off Korea's southeast coast in the early hours of Sunday morning. The crash sparked a fire, but fortunately for everyone on board the two vessels, all 91 crew members were rescued safely. The Hong Kong-flagged tanker, carrying 29,000 tons of flammable chemicals, was travelling in waters off Korea's southeastern port of Busan when it smashed into the 55,000-ton freighter Gravity Highway at around 2 a.m. Sunday Korea time. Although the fire did not spread to other containers, officials say there's still a chance the tanker could break in half. because the collision left a big hole in the side of the ship. At least 16 people have been killed after a suicide bomber detonated explosives in the entrance hall of a Russian train station. This latest attack has Russia on edge just weeks before the start of the Winter Olympics in Sochi. Song Ji-son reports.
Security has been stepped up at train stations and airports around Russia after a suspected female suicide bomber attacked Volgograd train station on Sunday, killing 16 people and injuring scores more. Russian investigators say the bomber detonated explosives in front of a metal detector just inside the main entrance of the station that was bustling with holiday travelers.
According to our information, a female suicide bomber approached the metal detector, saw a policeman there, got nervous and detonated the bomb. It could have been worse if the bomber passed through into the waiting hall, as the explosion was the equivalent of 10 kilograms of TNT.
This is a second such attack in the same city in recent months, following a bus bombing in October that killed 8, including the Islamist attacker. While the bomber's identity has still to be confirmed, and more than one person could have been involved, female suicide bombers known as Black Widows, the family members of dead insurgents, have carried out a number of attacks in nearby Muslim regions conflicting with the Russian administration. Volgograd is only a few hundred kilometers northeast of Sochi, raising security concerns ahead of the Winter Olympics, which kick off in February. Song Ji-son, ARIRANG News.
Tens of thousands of Ukrainians have once again come together in Kiev as they renew their anti-government protests. Thousands more also marched on President Viktor Yanukovych's official residence outside the capital. The protests, which have waned in recent days, received a fresh boost following an attack on a prominent journalist on Christmas Day. The journalist had accused Yanukovych of corruption over how he paid for his residence. The protests began a few weeks ago after the president's last-minute refusal to sign a trade deal with the European Union. It looks very likely that Syria will miss its year-end deadline to get most of its chemical weapons out of the country, despite global efforts to mobilize the resources needed to do so. The United Nations and the International Chemical Weapons Monitoring Group overseeing the program say the volatile security situation in Syria, logistical problems and bad weather had contributed to the delay. Syria has until the middle of next year to completely destroy its chemical weapons program under the deal struck by Russia and the United States in September. Saudi Arabia will give the Lebanese army $3 billion in aid, the largest grant ever to the country's armed forces. Lebanon's President Michel Suleiman said Saudi Arabia suggested that weapons would be purchased from France and done so quickly. France has indicated that it is ready to do business with Lebanon. The donation comes as Lebanon's army struggles to deal with internal militant groups, particularly the Shiite Muslim guerrilla and political movement Hezbollah. Watchers say Saudi Arabia wants to shore up the Lebanese army as a counterbalance to Hezbollah, seen as the most effective and powerful armed group in Lebanon and funded by Iran, a key adversary of Saudi Arabia. Moving now to South Sudan, where a greatly feared group of young fighters is becoming an increasing cause for concern. Tagged the White Army for the white ash they put on their skin to protect them from insects, thousands of youths from the newer ethnic group and loyal to rebel leader Riek Machar appeared to march towards the strategic town of Bor over the weekend, while earlier reports said the group abandoned plans after community leaders persuaded most of them to go home. The presidential spokesperson said there in fact were clashes between them and the government forces. What began as a power struggle between the country's president and Machar has now turned into an ethnic clash. At least 1,000 people have been killed in fighting this month, and well over 100,000 have fled their homes. For years now, Korea has been spearheading attempts to bring the latest high-tech devices into the classroom, from tablet PCs to robots. That's right, talking, singing, interactive robots. These robotic teaching assistants are now being recruited in the field of special education to help children at home and abroad. Our Paulie reports.
Meet the next generation of teachers here in Korea who require neither food nor sleep. These colorful and playful robots have been a hit at this elementary school in Gyeonggi-do province. Students are captivated as the robotic teachers start off classes with musical songs and also ensure they follow lessons correctly. It's tremendous progress for the special education class, as kids have quickly grown fond of their new instructors.
He listens well and plays together with me. It's been fun studying with Inki.
This unique class of robots called Inki was developed by the Korea Institute of Science and Technology. Researchers specifically designed the robots to help young children with learning disabilities, such as autism and ADHD. After a 3-month trial, teachers here say they've seen a dramatic change in their students.
As we interact with Inki, there's been a higher desire to make friends and get along with others. And it's not just the learning aspect. I've seen a large effect on the children, from their emotional behavior to even their social skills.
The comprehensive system allows a user to remotely control the robot while closely monitoring students' responses through multiple cameras.
The robot can be intelligently utilized when children play a game or review material. And when a little more communication is needed, the robot can be remotely controlled. In regard to smart robotics, I believe this attempt to open up a new market in Korea is important.
10 of the Korean learning robots will be exported to Denmark next year, while additional pilot programs will be conducted here at home, giving schools greater flexibility to reach their students. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
2014 is on the horizon, and many Koreans are planning to ring in the new year at famous winter destinations on the Korean peninsula. Jeju Island is among the hottest spots, but with thousands of tourists flocking to the southern island every day, hotel rooms and airline seats are in short supply. Son Jung-in reports.
It's the last week of the year, and another wave of tourists has just arrived at Jeju International Airport. They're part of the 25,000 daily visitors Jeju Island has been receiving during the winter holiday season. Jeju has become a hot destination for those looking to celebrate the end of the year at one of Korea's leading vacation spots.
This week, many climbers, hikers, and leisure sports tourists are seeking out Mount Halasan's snowy landscapes, and many families are coming in this weekend as well.
However, if you're looking to book a last-minute trip to Jeju, you may want to plan carefully. Hotels, condominiums, and other rental accommodations here are reporting that up to 80% of their vacancies have already been booked. Rental car dealerships say bookings are limited, with over half of their vehicles signed out. But for those who are able to make the trek, the spectacular scenic views are sure to take your breath away. The annual festival, held on top of Jeju's famous Hongsan Ilchulbong, or Sunrise Peak, is expected to draw in large crowds on New Year's Eve.
We're extending the festival this year by 1 day for a 3-day, 2-night event. We've established a variety of programs, including traditional weddings for foreigners, trips to World Natural Heritage Sites, and others.
Whether you're visiting Jeju or in the capital city of Seoul, special events across the country will be welcoming the first sunrise of 2014 with warm wishes and united cheers. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
And a good Monday morning to you all as we kick things off in domestic baseball. Now, shortly after Yoon Sung-min returned to Korea for the holidays, a few teams in the KBL thought maybe they have a shot at signing Yoon Sung-min. And in case the righty does fail to sign with a major league team, the teams looking to sign him are the Kia Tigers, the LG Twins, the SK Wyverns, and the Lotte Giants. While the Kia Tigers are the frontrunners in signing Yoon Sung-min, the other 3 teams are looking for a pitcher who's capable of earning 10-plus wins. But according to the pitcher, there's still a chance that he might sign with a major league team.
And moving on, the South Korean national team manager Hong Myung-bo had his 11th annual charity football match, and fans enjoyed every moment of it. With the Love team consisting of mostly overseas players, played against the Hope team, which consisted of mostly K-League Classic players. And in front of a packed gym on Sunday, the Hope team snuck past the Love team 13-12, with the North Korean Wayne Rooney Jung Dae-se playing a great match. Now another successful charity match for Hong Myung-bo, as fans enjoyed much more than just football. And moving on to some Sunday's KBL action, the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus beat the KT Sonic Boom 76-61, with the Seoul Samsung Thunders cruising past Wonju Dongbu Promi 81-67. So with that said, let's move on to the LG Sakers taking on KCC Aegis. Now first quarter, KCC super rookie Kim Min-gu leading the way as KCC takes a slim 21-19 lead before LG rallies back to tie it up 32-32 after the first half of the game. But the third quarter of the game, here come the LG Sakers led by Devon Jefferson's 12 points in the quarter, outscored KCC 29-13 before the big man finishes off with 27 points and 10 rebounds as LG takes this game 78-60, your final score. And moving on to some Sunday's V-League action, GS Caltex beat the struggling Hyundai Hillstate in straight sets 3-0 over on the women's side, followed by Uricard beating KEPCO in straight sets 3-0 as well over on the men's side. Meanwhile, let's take a look at Hyundai Capital Skywalkers taking on Russian Cash Vespid. Now first set, here come the Vespid dominating on the court as they surprise everyone with a 25-20 set win. But no repeat performance from Russian Cash as Hyundai Capital, led by Liberman Algamez's 43 attack points, take the next three sets 25-20, 25-22, and 25-21, with Moon Sung-min returning from his injury late in the 3-0 win over Russian Cash. And finishing things off with the main event of UFC 168 as middleweight champion Chris Weidman looked to defend his title against the former champ Anderson Silva. The highly anticipated fight between the two fighters ended with a horrible injury as Anderson Silva in the second round of the fight lands an inside kick and shortly falls to the ground. The result, a broken leg, which ends the fight, leading to Chris Weidman defending his title. Now, sources say that Silva will be sidelined for at least a year and could possibly retire from the sport. Well, that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
And time now to check in on the weather conditions in Korea and around the world. And that's all for now. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and we do hope to see you back again for our next newscast, which is coming up at noon, Korea time.